Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview. And you might be catching us live on Facebook or catching us live on YouTube saying, why are they on Tuesday? This is normally Scobro time. Well, the week got all mashed up because the Steelers play on Thursday. So we're here to preview that game. But Scobro went on, what was it, Sunday, Dave? Yes. Sunday. They went on Sunday. We're on Tuesday. The curtain call will be Wednesday, and then we will be there on Thursday for the wrap-up, the post-game show after the Hall of Fame game. But before we get to all that news, I want to bring in our podcast producer, Bryan Anthony Davis. What's going on, Bryan? How are you?
So glad to be here, Jeffrey and Davidson. I'm so glad to be here. Oh, I'm sorry, Jefferson. You know, it's fantastic. You know, to quote the great Rich Schofield, can't wait to be on the Scobro show in their spot.
There you go. Dave Schofield, one of the Scobros, is here. What's up, Dave?
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another. It's 9:00 on Tuesday. Sorry, I can't help myself. But now this is fun. This is great. How wonderful is it to be doing the Steelers preview to actually preview?
You're right. I have a question for you all to start off right off the bat. So I had this question on my Let's Ride podcast that aired Wednesday morning. It was basically about the preseason and did you miss the preseason? I think it's easy to say that fans look at the preseason totally different now. And they're like, oh my gosh, I kind of missed it. You think the players missed it? Or do you think the players are like, this still sucks. It's still a meaningless game that I could get hurt in. Bryan, what do you think?
It depends who you are. You know,
oh, that was my Dave answer. That was my Dave answer.
Okay,
you're
actually,
exactly right.
I don't know, but I know who does know, and it's editor Dave Schofield. Let's go to him.
No,
Jeff.
Bryan, you're exactly right. Bryan, who are the players who it doesn't matter for?
I mean, it doesn't matter to Cam Hayward, and it really doesn't matter to Ben Roethlisberger or really Juju Smith-Schuster and guys like that.
Joe Hayden, TJ Watt.
Yeah, Micah Fitzpatrick. You know,
okay.
Well, I mean,
I kind of disagree in a way with the offensive player. They could have got it.
That they could get by without it. Yeah,
I don't.
But who
does
it matter for?
I think it matters for any offensive player, including Ben Roethlisberger, because you have a whole new offensive line, a whole new offensive system. I think that they are going to view this as a really good time for them to get some of the, hopefully, iron out some of these wrinkles in this offense. I understand what you're saying from a veteran standpoint, but I think that the Steelers offense, they need as many reps as they can get, and they're not going to play. We know that. But at the same time, does that make sense? I think that there is some value there.
But there's a different mindset if you're Cam Hayward. Yeah. You know, if you're Ben Roethlisberger, you know that you're going to shine and turn it on. You expect to play in the preseason, and you know how I've said all along, I'd rather see Ben play a little bit more, and I know it's a risk, than his 2 quarters in game number 3 that's been happening since 2015, thanks to that stat by the Oracle Dave Schofield, and thanks to the person who did not know that, the un-Oracle Jeff Hartman. So
Jeff Hartman's never claimed to be the Oracle, by the way. Like,
I've never claimed to be the Oracle.
I'm just saying you're the un-Oracle right now with that.
The un-Oracle.
If somebody can be the uncola, you can be the un-Oracle. But anyways, now, you know what? I really think that even for a guy like Alex Highsmith, he wants to get a tune-up. That's sure, but he's feels pretty solid in his position. But if your name's Jameer Jones, if your name is Benny Snell Jr., if those guys, they want the reps. They need the reps. And I love it that Najee Harris comes in and says, yeah, I want to play the full game. That just shows you even more what he is. You're not playing the full game, Najee. I'm just telling you that right now.
No. And so let's take this moment to talk about Mike Tomlin's press conference today, where he said that Najee Harris will play in all 4 games. Now, how much he plays is up for debate. Dave, if you're the head coach, how much is your number 1 draft pick playing against the Cowboys Thursday?
All right. Believe it or not, I'm going to do this. Are we doing over under later?
I can do it
no,
real quick.
Because I was going to give you an over under on Najee Harris carries.
Go ahead and do it.
4.
I'm going to say over. Bryan?
Yeah, I'm going to go slightly over.
I think he gets a drive.
I wouldn't be shocked if he only gets 1 or 2.
a drive. Like I think if the drive is successful and they get some first downs, I think he easily gets more than 4 carries. Yeah. You said carries or touches?
I said carries, meaning just for
okay. No. That's fine because carries, I think they're going to get touches. I mean, I think they're going to get him the ball in space a lot too in the passing game.
I've seen some people say he will come into the game, he will carry the ball once, and he will be done.
And that's fine. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you think about Najee Harris's usage on Thursday?
Let's go back to 1995 in the Wayback Machine, fellas, and let's bring up a Penn State star named Kajana Carter in his preseason debut with the Cincinnati Bengals against
No, don't do it.
Okay.
Don't do it.
You just don't want a Kajana. I know, Dave. You just don't want the career that Kajana had because that was a rough game for his rookie year. Let's just put it that way.
So what happened? I don't know this story. Like in 1995, I was all Steelers. I was all Steelers and nothing else.
He was the number 1 pick. Well, I was a Penn State fan too.
I was 12.
So he was the number 1 pick overall in the 1995 draft, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's just say
he
the
tore
tires.
his knee up.
Yeah, the tires on the Kajana mobile.
On, we're all adults here. You can say he tore his knee up. Was it
I want to, but Dave's giving me the
evil eye. I'm just saying, don't do that.
Was it a career-ending injury?
No, he played. He was just never what they thought he would.
Never
be.
The same. Got it.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So here's another question for you all, and this is going to relate back to Mike Tomlin. We'll tie this into the news, and it is that all 3 quarterbacks that are not named Ben Roethlisberger will be playing. Mason Rudolph will start. Dwayne Haskins is expected to finish the second half, and Joshua Dobbs is supposed to get the entire second half. How much?
No.
That's what he said.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
And what did he say? He gets the.
He said that Josh Dobbs
half.
will end the second half.
Okay.
A 2-minute situation.
All right. So then
he didn't say at what point in the second half he would start. So
I would put money that Dobbs plays the entire second half. But still, let's talk about the. We're slicing up the pie here. How much do you have Mason play? How much do you have Dwayne play? And how much do you have Joshua Dobbs play? Brian, we'll go with you first.
Well, I frankly want to see Mason with a quarter. I want to see Dwayne with 2. And I'd rather see Dobbs with 1, but it sounds like that's not going to be the way it's going to happen. Who knows? Dwayne might get 2 and 3, and then he might get quarter 2 and 3. But I would think that they're going to be giving a lot to Dobbs. Now, if that happens, then the next game, whoever gets the most in this game will probably get the least in the next game.
Yeah, I think it's going to change drastically from one week to the next. Dave, what about you? What do you think is going to happen with the quarterback situation?
Well, as we know, it's all going to depend on what these drives look like. Because you would love to say, we get 2 drives. But if it's 2, 3 and outs on both sides of the ball, and it's only halfway through the first quarter, then they're going to go out and do another one. So, but at the same time, you don't want to say it's the quarters, because if you go out there and have one great drive that's, 11 plays for 80 yards and a touchdown, then that might be the only drive. But I'll kind of go, I think I'll mix it up with using both. It'll be Rudolph for about a quarter. It'll be Haskins the rest of the first half and probably the first drive of the second half. And then they'll go to try to make it a little bit more even, I think. And then they'll go to Dobbs for the rest of the third quarter and all the fourth.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. The next logical follow-up question for both of you is, do you think that Dwayne Haskins actually has a legitimate shot at being QB2 when week 1 rolls around based on the preseason? Brian, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. If he continues to play well, he has a legitimate shot. Now, when I say playing well, we're just getting reports that he's playing well, and we're getting reports that Mason is struggling a little bit. There's also something in the back of my mind thinking that if a quarterback from another team goes down, we saw Pennsylvania go down just the other day in Indianapolis.
What did you call him?
Pennsylvania.
They had this stupid Pennsylvania t-shirt.
I never heard that before.
Yeah,
I haven't either. I love it.
They had the Keystone State. It was green. It said Pennsylvania. And so with Wentz going down, I know he could be out into a week 12 possibly, or 5 to 12 weeks, something like that. Another team might have a quarterback go down. We just heard about Matthew Stafford. catching his thumb on somebody's helmet today in practice.
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to happen where a team like when Nick Foles went down in week 1 with Jacksonville 2 years ago and Josh Dobbs was traded there. So you never know that one of these guys that's going for the QB2 position might be dealt out of town.
But you think that it's an open competition. I like that. Dave, what do you think? You agree with Bryan?
Oh, I think it's open for anyone to do anything, basically. That's what Coach Tomlin keeps saying. And I think that's true to a degree. I don't think there's a competition for QB1. I think that one's pretty safe, but it is going to be based on the preseason and how they play. And it's funny because Bryan says that there's, reports of Rudolph not doing well. And I've heard reports of Haskins doing great. And there's been other days where he hasn't. So it's kind of almost what you want to hear at times.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that wasn't saying to you, Bryan. That's almost
I agree with you. I agree.
But to say that it's not, that he can't be QB2, I think would be foolish. So the question is as much as he can. The question is, will he? And how much does he have to do above and beyond to actually get to there, if you know what I mean?
Well, that's a good question. What needs to happen on both planes? So we're talking about Rudolph and Haskins for this to actually happen. Because I think anyone with their brain in between their ears right now would say that Mason Rudolph is QB2 on the depth chart. But what would need to happen for both Rudolph and Haskins for those to switch? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Landry Jones, 4 interceptions against the Philadelphia Eagles in preseason week 2 or 3 just a few years ago. I mean, something like that could happen to just completely have his stock plummet and then have a guy like Haskins look like his pedigree in the preseason.
Okay, good answer. Dave, what about you?
Honestly, I think regardless, I think it's going to be that Rudolph would in essence be your QB2, meaning he would get the helmet on game day. But if you had, I don't even want to say it, just like we didn't want to talk about Kajana Carter, if we had a repeat of 2019, I don't know that it wouldn't necessarily be Haskins to be the next guy to come in and actually have to start a game, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? It could be, but because they talked about that when it was Rudolph and Dobbs in 2019 before Dobbs got traded, or even the year before in 2018 when it was Dobbs getting the helmet on game day and Rudolph didn't. They said, well, if something happened and they needed someone to start, it might not have even been Dobbs. It might have been Rudolph, So there's a difference between the guy that you would want to start if your starter's gone or the guy who's ready to come in off the bench if you need him to do that right there. Some say that that's not necessarily the case how they would do it. I'm just saying there's all kinds of options. And really, we're not going to know until after they play these 4 games.
Absolutely. Well, let's focus on this first game, Thursday night, Pittsburgh Steelers at Dallas Cowboys. This is the Steelers preview, and we're actually finally able to preview a football game. That's exciting. I don't care if it's meaningless or not. It's not meaningless for these players. I want to get your guys' take, and we'll start with the offensive side of the football. Just give me a player you're excited to see, and let's keep it someone that's going to be seeing significant reps. So think about it that way. That's the only criteria. Offensive player, going to see a lot of playing time. Give the fans out there listening, okay, I need to make a list. Who should I keep an eye on? Bryan, give me a player.
I'm actually going to say, I'll go ahead and say Dan Moore Jr.
I think
he's a big feisty guy.
Oh yeah. I think he's going to get some action.
Feisty.
And I'm sure there's other people on the offensive line people are looking at, but I know he has been going up against Mr. Highsmith in camp. And it's been a learning experience going up against Alex because Alex looks like he's had that jump from year 1 to year 2. I'd like to see him up against the competition with Dallas and see how that goes. And I think he's going to get some significant time.
Okay, that's a good one. What about you, Dave? Give me a player.
My answer is going to be, it's going to be 53. It's going to be Kendrick Green. That's who
he was kicking up dust in practice.
Yeah.
Was it today or was it yesterday?
Might have been both. I don't even know.
I think it was today.
I think you're right. I think it was today.
He was wanting to fight everybody.
Together.
He was wanting to fight everybody.
But when it comes to, if you want to know something to look for, I'm saying with Kendrick Green, but this is where you could look at anything on the offensive line. If you want to see an improvement in the run game, and you want to actually tune in and really pay attention to the offensive line, see if there are players getting to the second level when they show the replay, if you're watching the running back and everything when they run. Meaning you've got the guys at the line of scrimmage, then you've got guys like the linebackers and sometimes strong safeties and things like that that are your second level guys of your defense. See if the offensive linemen are getting downfield to get to those players. That's going to tell you an awful lot about the players themselves and their blocking philosophy in the run game. I think that's something important if you want to look beyond a player to look for.
No, you're right. And I think that also, I'm looking at a list that I have, and some of these players, I don't know if they're going to play because of injury, but I'm going to go with someone I know is going to play. And let's be honest, we already talked about him a little bit, and that's Dwayne Haskins. We don't know. Everyone is just right now, we're literally just having these, well, he could be good. He could be great. He could also really stink because he stunk in Washington for a long time. I want to see what he can do. I don't care if it's against second, third string players. You can tell pretty quick, in my opinion, whether or not a guy can do it or he can't do it. But that's who I'm going to go with, Dwayne Haskins. Bryan, do you have any others on offense that you're thinking about?
Now, I do love that Haskins pick. Of course, I was going to take Green just to upset Dave there, just to mess with Dave, because I knew exactly who he was going with. But I'd like to see Pat Freiermuth. I definitely want to see him.
We'll see.
That shoulder. He's got a shoulder. We're not sure
he
if he's
left
going
early
to
today.
play. Yeah.
Then give me some Zach Gentry then.
Gentry didn't practice today either.
Okay,
do we have any tight ends? Anyone?
Yes. Bryan's, the headphones are off. He's signing out.
Well, then I say let's see the guy they brought in for Dax Raymond. I don't even know this guy's name.
How do you say B-A-U-G-H? Was it Baugh? I don't know. I
wrote the article, but don't know how to say the name.
Baugh?
Like Sammy Baugh.
Baugh with the Baugh.
Sorry. Oh, gosh, jeez. We went there, folks.
Love it.
Okay.
Jeff is done.
Anyways, Dave, who just answered that? Was it
I said Kendrick Green went off about the offensive line a little bit, which what I was saying to look for includes Dan Moore Jr. and anyone else who could be there.
But give me
just
a player.
Look at the whole line. What's that?
Give me another player. Like,
you want another player?
Yeah.
Well, Bryan didn't give another player yet.
Well, he did, but they were all hurt.
Oh, okay, that's right. He did.
Then I'll give you. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm going to say this guy just because I want to hear whether it's Rico Bussey or Rico Busey. What's his name?
I think it's Bussey. Can we just call him Rico Suave?
I don't know.
Rico Suave.
Jeff keeps calling him Ballage when everyone else has told me it's Ballage. So I don't know. I don't know which it is.
Time, I would have just told you for the longest time, well, he's not going to make the team anyways. But now Benny Snell's hurt, and he might make the team.
I don't know. See, and like I was going to give another player that I would really like to see, but once again, he didn't practice today, and that was Antmac.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of the between Snell and McFarland. Neither of them practicing today. I think that's part of the reason that they brought in another running back today that they had signed, who brought back from 3 games in 2019 in what's his name, Mr. 3 first names,
Tony Brooks James.
Tony Brooks James. Yeah,
TBJ.
Yeah. So, and now, can I ask you a quick question? Sorry.
TBJ.
I want to ask you guys a question.
Okay.
If you really look at the words Coach Tomlin said yesterday in regards to Benny Snell Jr., the word injury was not used.
He just said the severity.
Yeah, he didn't use the word injury. So, or anything like that. Do you think that means anything? Or, do you think it's something else? Or do you really just think that he did hurt something and that's why he's out and hasn't even been on the field the last 2 days?
This is one of those weird injuries where most of the time you see someone get banged up in practice. Like today, Najee Harris left for a play with a shoulder, but he went back in. Freiermuth had a shoulder. Did you all hear anything about Benny Snell getting hurt?
I did not. Here, I'll even tell you the exact quote from Tomlin. It said, he's being looked at. Maybe I'll have an update for you when I determine the severity or lack of severity of it. Right now, we're exploring his status.
Jeez, it's kind of vague.
That's like Coach Tomlin 101 right there.
Well, he doesn't have to say anything about injuries, so he
No,
can
he
be
doesn't.
as vague or specific as he wants.
Yeah. Maybe it was just me that I thought that was interesting that it wasn't saying none. I mean, you would imply that he was talking about an injury, but he doesn't really say it.
No, you're right.
So interesting.
Well, Ballage, whatever you want to call his
Yeah.
name. I think I have him on the list because I think he's going to be someone to watch. He's
going to get to play a lot.
Everyone's been talking about him since mandatory minicamp. But let's go to defense. Bryan, who you got on defense to watch?
Buddy Johnson. I want to see what this guy has.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he'll probably play, I would imagine, them as the entire second half. So you'll see a lot. I want to see him too. That's a good one. What about you, Dave? Give me a defender.
Can I give you two?
Well, we're going to go around again, but you can give me one.
Well, I'm going to say two. I said this on the Scobro show. This is what I want to see. I want to see Cam Sutton and James Pierre as the two outside corners. Both of them out there at the same time to get more of a sample size. And then I'd like to see them switch sides. That's what I'd like to see. See them each work each side of just seeing what you have in your starting, who could be a starting outside corner. Because why not? I mean, if you're saying they're both going for the same position, doesn't mean that you have to leave one of them on the bench while the other one's out there because you want them both on that same side of the field. I'd like to see them both out there at the same time and just kind of see how things work. So that's what I'd like to look at.
No, I had James Pierre on my list for sure, and someone that I want to see, but I don't know. Did he practice? Did Antoine Brooks Jr. practice today, Dave?
I did not have him as someone not practicing. I can that I can remember,
right.
But I'd have to double check here.
He's one that if he's playing, I really want to see what he can do because that hit me like a ton of bricks when I found out that he was getting the first shot at Mike Hilton, his job in the nickel. I was like, what? Antoine Brooks Jr.? I mean, reportedly he's lost weight. He's improved his his speed, his agility. He's a lot lighter. I want to see what Antoine Brooks Jr. can do. People forget this guy didn't even make the team last season out of camp. He was cut, signed to the practice squad, promoted, and stuck. So I'm going to say Antoine Brooks Jr. Bryan, do you have anyone else on the defensive side of the football you're looking forward to seeing?
Quincy Roche.
Q from the U.
I want to see this guy. I think he's a dynamic pass rusher, and I think he's the kind of guy that could have multiple sacks in the preseason. I mean, granted, he might be the UG3 with just a lot of action because UG3 had a lot of sacks and a lot of tackles that year, but he was playing a good bit of the 2019 preseason. I would think Q gets a lot of action as well.
Has anyone heard? I did say that Bob Labriola pumped up Q from the U a little bit in a post-practice, post-camp video. I have not heard a thing about him otherwise. Anyone heard anything?
Well, because they're all focused on Ingram and Highsmith.
I get it, but I've heard more about who's the guy that Jameer Jones, and I have Quincy Roche.
Yeah.
It's just weird. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And, Labriola
it almost makes you wonder if the Steelers are trying to not make him be noticed as much because they're, you've got to remember this as the preseason goes on. Some of these guys that the Steelers think are decent, but they don't think they have room for, they might want to not highlight so much in order to get them on the practice squad.
See, I look at it. See, my conspiracy theorist mind goes the other way. I see Bob Labriola as a Steelers employee, and it's like, we just drafted this kid. Someone's got to say something good about him, or else we're going to look like a bunch of idiots.
That could be just as likely.
Go ahead, Dave. Did you have another one? Or were you done?
I mean, I said two before. I could say more. Honestly, I would like to see. I think Miles Killebrew is going to get to play an awful lot of strong safety. I mean, he's been getting a lot of work with the ones because we found out yesterday that. Did we know before that Terrell Edmonds had surgery in the offseason?
I did not know.
Didn't realize that at all. So we know that now that's why Killebrew's been getting a lot there. And which is interesting because I don't know if he's a guy that they even considered for that slot position, but because he's playing in place of Edmonds, he hasn't had the chance yet, if you know what I mean. It's really interesting because you brought that up about Brooks. It sounds like I wonder if they might not even want to run the same player in the slot all the time because are they wanting to do use the slot as a Mike Hilton type slot, or they actually wanted to use the slot as more of a coverage slot, not more like the slot backer, as some people have said. I mean, if you want someone that's more like a linebacker, can blitz, help with the run, and can take the short passing routes, then it makes sense that they would look for someone like Antoine Brooks Jr. But I just kind of want to have an idea of who else you could possibly see there.
Well, that's one other person on my list. It's Arthur Millette. Yeah. And that's kind of like the forgotten free agent acquisition. No one talks about Arthur Millette. I kind of really started to enjoy what he brings to the table, at least on paper or on film, when Jeffrey Benedict did his film room breakdown when they signed him. What does Arthur Millette bring to the Steelers defense? You can Google that and you'll see his article. Look it up. He breaks down the film when he's with the New York Jets. He can play the slot. He can play safety. Very versatile. And I heard Minkah Fitzpatrick talking about him the other day after practice, saying that they, meaning Brooks and Millette, are two completely different players that bring completely different components to that position. So, Dave, I kind of agree with you. I wouldn't be shocked if they almost have, I guess, do you want to call it like a big nickel and a small nickel, where those slot defenders do different things, things. Okay. All right. Very good. Anyone else that we haven't mentioned that you're looking forward to seeing?
I don't know. Someone from the peanut gallery has something they want to say in some way.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was trying to find the mute.
And we're back. Now,
right,
what was the joke?
I said, control your kids, Brian. All right. Anyone else you're excited to see play on Thursday? Could be offense, defense. You know who I'm going to say, but go ahead.
I know. Oh. Yeah. No, Jeff's going.
He's going special teams. Let him go.
Yeah. How about, I don't know. For the first time, guys, it's funny because people were asking me things about this today, and they're like, oh, yeah, taking on the Cowboys, everything. I'm like, seriously, in the preseason, that is when it really is the nameless gray faces. I don't care what the other uniform is out there in this game, because this has nothing to do with the team they're actually playing. This has everything to do with what the Steelers are doing. So let's go with a long snapper. Let's see if we can get a little competition going on there, because I brought him up as a possible camp sleeper. Is it Christian Kuntz? Is that, I guess, how you would want to say
Kuntz,
it?
Yes.
That has been around with this. This is his third time being around with the Steelers. He was in training camp 2 years ago, was in the practice squad on and off last year. If he could win the job, first of all, he's a former linebacker from Duquesne, so he's got to be decent on coverage after snapping the punt, more than the typical long snapper is sometimes. But that's somewhere where you could save some money on the salary cap, about almost $500,000. So I think I had it at around $400K, but every little thing. We'll see.
Let me throw a crazy one at you. Derek Watt.
There you go.
Derek Watt's been getting a lot of hype. This is nice.
I definitely want to see some Derek Watt action and see how they're going to employ him.
They've been deploying him in a lot of different ways in training camp, and that's been really interesting to see. Wheel routes, he's making one-handed catches, just using him in all sorts of ways. This could be a season where he would actually prove that his value in regards to his contract. Because what do we always say? He's the most expensive special teams player in the NFL because he just doesn't do anything else. Maybe they'll actually, that's a good one, Brian. I'm going to go with none other than my boy, Big Press, Thick Kick, as they call him. Which, by the way, if you all follow me on Twitter, I just retweeted this about 30 minutes ago. A follower of mine, part of the Ride or Die crew, hashtag Ride or Die crew. She was there with her son. Her 13-year-old son's a huge fan of the show, and he took a picture of Presley Harvin from training camp and sent it to me. You have to see this picture. Like, you just don't understand how, my gosh, this dude is huge. He is massive, a massive individual. Check it out. And Felicia always calls him Big Six. I like that too. Yeah. So I want to see, and I hate that it's the King. I don't like that because it's close to Brian's,
which was
Elvis
the worst
Presley, which
attempt.
Not a fan.
Worst attempt of a nickname ever.
Oh, Mr. Third and Fifth was awesome.
That's what he was.
That wasn't Dave's, was it?
Actually, it was kind of came together between Lance and I when we were on the show together. So,
well, let's see here. Hold on here. Sean Manahan gives us $2. Says Jeff's nightmare. Harvin injured up. Don't say it, Sean. Don't say it, because that means Weasel Boy would be stuck here.
Seriously.
Forever.
I didn't want to say his name because I wanted to leave him for Jeff, but I'm actually just as excited to see him hold.
Who? Big Press?
Harvin. Yeah.
Oh, Big Press can hold.
Yeah.
Shoot. Dude can squat 600 pounds. He can hold a football.
Yeah. So
if not, just give it to him and let him run up the middle. He'll take care of the rest.
Yeah. Hey, run the fake.
All right. We're at the 30-minute mark. If you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, stay tuned. We're not going anywhere. If you're listening on the audio side, head over to part 2. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. Joining me as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, Dave Schofield, and we are talking about all things Steelers Cowboys Thursday night football. Guys, I want to ask you, which team, this is not really this game, but just in general, between the two players, who are you more excited to see play in the black and gold, Melvin Ingram or Trey Turner? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Melvin Ingram. You know, I love what Trey brings, but Melvin Ingram is really exciting to me. I love the fact that he was lining up at tight end today in practice. It just seems like this guy kind of gets it. And when he's kind of a team first kind of guy, I feel like it with the whole, maybe I've invented this in my head, but with the whole Justin Houston situation where they talk to him first and he may or may have not had some demands on guarantees of playing time, but or because the money was the same between the Steelers and the Ravens. But what I was thinking here is that this guy just seems like he just fits in the system as far as fits in the locker room, just fits. And if he's healthy, he's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait to see number 8, a big man wearing number 8.
That's true. Dave, what about you?
I'm going Turner because I feel that Melvin Ingram is more of a known. It just the way I look at him, I just my own personal feeling, and I still and because there's so much questions on the offensive line, I'd like to feel much better about Turner. So I'm really interested to see what he can do and how he can play with the players next to him. Like if he lines up next to Quadrant Green to start the game, I want to see what the two of those guys can do together out there working in combo.
I kind of I like both of these guys, but I gotta go with Turner. This is David DeCastro 2.0. We're talking about a guy oh geez. Sorry,
what?
Hold on. Goodness gracious.
Wow, I just saw that.
That escalated quickly. We'll just that one.
Wow. Bryan, I don't know if Bryan knows what you're talking about.
I don't know. No,
for those of you in the live chat, sorry about that. But
if that comes back,
that was spam,
yeah,
right?
Keep an eye on that. Yes, it was. Anyways, I'm gonna go with Turner because if he turns out to be something, we knew David DeCastro was like, oh, maybe he can come back and be good again. It's the same story with Turner. I feel like Ingram, if he's healthy and he's proven that he can stay healthy, my gosh, I think it would be good. I'm excited for both these guys. So, hey, we want to play a little game here. Okay, I normally do over-under. I decided not to do over-under, and Dave did a little over-under with Najee Harris carries today, and there it is. Oh, gosh.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Goodness gracious. Someone take control of that. Anyways,
yeah.
I decided that I went on Twitter, and I asked some questions to Steelers fans, did some polls. I want to get Charles' take on them. Okay. These are not questions directly related to Thursday night's game, just in general. So are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Very good. Wow.
Oh boy.
Right, got it. First question. Which rookie will have a bigger impact in 2021? Dan Moore Jr. or Trey Norwood? Bryan Anthony Davis. What do you think?
Dan Moore Jr.
Okay. Do you want to explain or just?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but there could be some injury concerns on that offensive line. And we saw it with Kevin Dotson last year. So, you might see a lineman, get in a whole lot earlier. And there's always that possibility that I don't know if they're going to be employing this type of offense, but if you ever bring in the extra tight end, it could be a guy like that.
True. Dave, what do you think? Dan Moore or Trey Norwood?
I'm going to go with Trey Norwood, basically because of the positions that they play. Although the Steelers need a lot of help on the offensive line, generally, if you're the starter at offensive line, you play 100% of the snaps. But then when you're looking at the defense and secondary and everything like that, where there are opportunities in some package for players to get on the field otherwise, or to also make a splash on special teams. That's the only reason.
Okay, the votes on Twitter, Dan Moore Jr. was winner by 57% to 43% for Trey Norwood. I mean, some people think that Norwood's going to be a depth piece for the Steelers in like the dime, almost like the versatile Cam Sutton role from 2020 and prior. So that'll be a good one to watch. Here we go. Next question. Which player will have more touchdowns in 2021? Deontay Johnson or Juju Smith-Schuster? Bryan, we'll start with you.
I think it's going to be Deontay Johnson.
Okay.
I think this is a year he takes the reins.
Who led out of these two last year? Does anyone know off the top of their head? Dave, do you know your numbers?
Touchdowns. I have it actually.
Bryan,
should be. I would say Juju.
I think it's Juju because it was Claypool. Yeah, because Claypool and Juju had the same number. They both had 9, and then Deontay had 7.
Okay, so Bryan, you think Deontay leapfrogs Juju and has more touchdowns?
I actually think he does this year. I think
because it's not who leads the team. It's not who leads the team. It's just who has more between the two. So you think Deontay does? Okay. What about you, Dave?
I'm going with Juju, but I don't think he'll have as many catches. I don't think he'll have as many targets, just like last year. But I think he'll have more touchdowns. I think Ben will continue to, when he gets down there, just like he did, created part of the problems in 2018 because he said he should have throwing the ball to Juju 4 times in the end zone. That's what he's going to do.
Okay, I'm going to go with Juju, and that's what the fans did as well. 67% to Juju Smith-Schuster to 33 Deontay Johnson. Next question. This is more of team-oriented. Which team finishes with the most wins? Be honest here. Ravens, Steelers, or Browns in the AFC North? Bryan, what do you think?
Baltimore.
Really? Okay. Any reason you like what the Ravens are doing over there or what?
The way they draft and the way Eric DaCosta puts that team together, I just they're a team that I don't bet against. In fact, I bet that they were going to win the division last year. They didn't. The Steelers did, and I was very happy to be wrong. I just really like I really like to go against the Browns, and I will say that. The Ravens, I have respect for them so much more than I do Cleveland, and I think Cleveland is starting to buy into their own hype, and I think that's going to hamper them a little bit. I think the Steelers are going to be right up there, and I think it's going to be a battle.
Okay. Dave, answer the question. Ravens, Steelers, or Browns, most wins?
Well, that's tough, but I'm kind of like with Bryan. I'm going to eliminate the Browns first because, honestly, they haven't been there enough to know how to handle it yet. Maybe this is the year they can, but until they do, I mean, last year they were still 3rd in the division last year, to show that they know what it's like to be there and can do that. So I think it comes down to the Steelers. I'm going to go with Bryan. I'm going to say, as much as I want to say the Steelers, I'm going to say Baltimore, but I also feel that they're one of those teams that, one key injury in the wrong spot, and they struggle to get to 500. So I'll go with that based on everything now. But you could ask me 4 weeks into the season, and I'd be like, "Man, what was I thinking?"
I'm a homer. I'm going to say the Steelers, and my fans are homers, and they said the Steelers too. 58% said Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Which I'm not surprised. I want to say the Steelers.
Absolutely. I know. I get it. You all were being honest. I appreciate that. Okay. The next question is: which rookie will play the least in 2021? This is going to be tough considering all the hype that's been happening going into this game on Thursday. Kendrick Green or Pat Freiermuth?
Oh,
Bryan?
Who plays the most?
Least.
Oh, who plays the least? Okay.
Oh, wow.
I was dialing up some good ones on Twitter.
Regular season, right? Regular season, play the least.
Yeah, regular season. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say Kendrick Green.
Plays the least?
Yeah, okay. I'll say Kendrick Green because there's still a possibility that he doesn't start the season, even though he might end up being the starter. But it's funny. I have a feeling they're going to be putting a lot of Freiermuth double tight end sets, and if he's healthy, I think you're going to see a lot of them. Yeah, I might be completely wrong on that.
That's okay. So you said Kendrick Green plays the least?
Yeah.
All right, Dave, what do you think?
Okay, I want to even get a number to go with this. I'm going with Pat Freiermuth playing the least, because think about this. Even if Kendrick Green doesn't start the first several weeks, once he becomes a starter, those offensive line, they play 100% of the snaps in the game. It's just what they generally do. I mean, last year, Vance McDonald, now granted you could say they could use the second tight end more, but Vance McDonald was technically considered the starting tight end for the year because he started more games than Ebron. He played 44% of the offensive snaps. Ebron played not even 70% of the offensive snaps. Even if you're the number one guy at that position, you're not going to get the number of snaps that you do from being a lineman. So even if Kendrick Green doesn't play in the first quarter of the season, I still think he's going to get more snaps if he starts, 12 or 13 games.
Yeah, I think it's Freiermuth. I think Kendrick Green's going to start. I think unless he completely falls apart, I think they're like, this is our guy. I think week one, he's going to start, barring a complete he and Roethlisberger fumble snaps constantly. That's the only way, in my opinion, that he doesn't start. But real quick question, and people in the live chat might know. Freiermuth dinged up his shoulder today, and I know his availability on Thursday. Does anyone know if it's the same shoulder he hurt in college? That was surgically okay. Good.
Okay, he hurt his right shoulder in college, according to one deputy editor, Michael Beck. And he would know. Yes, and it was his left shoulder that he had the ice on today.
Okay.
And the report said that he was done for practice, but it didn't look like he was writhing in pain, if you know what I mean. So, but sometimes those injuries are the ones that you hurt it, and it might not hurt the worst, but we'll see what comes from it.
Captain Blue checkmark would know. That's my Mr. Michael Beck. All right. The next question, we have two more. Which player has more interceptions in 2021? Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden, or Cam Sutton? Bryan, what do you think? Think about all of this here. Now, it's real easy to just have a knee-jerk reaction, but think about it a little bit. Who do you think? I'll read them again. Minkah, Joe Hayden, or Cam Sutton?
I hesitate to say Minkah just for the fact that they throw away from him so much, like they did in the second half of 2019. I could honestly go with Cam Sutton here for the fact that he might be challenged more.
I could absolutely see that 100%. Dave, you agree, disagree? What do you think?
I want to give a Dave answer because you guys make a big deal about Dave answers. I love making. I have to feel like I have to come up with one. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of pressure
just answer the question.
To give a Dave. I think Cam Sutton will have more interceptions earlier in the season.
Well, here we go.
And then I think once this gets developed, then it shifts over to Joe Hayden.
Just because we bring up Dave answers doesn't mean we grade them.
When you take everything into consideration, it's going to be a three-way tie.
I have a feeling that Dave, after the show, like he's sitting there and he's watching TV and goes, gosh darn it, I could have had this great Dave answer. I had it.
I've done that before. I have to admit.
It would have been a great
People
Dave
were expecting a Dave answer. I feel like since it's become a thing, I have to do it. No, but if I was just going to say one player, I would say Sutton because I think he's going to be targeted the most out of the three.
No, I agree. And the knee-jerk reaction is Minkah. And that's what they happened on Twitter. 68%.
He never gets targeted.
No. What, Bryan?
26 targets last season? That was it.
Wasn't a lot.
It's crazy.
I'm still picturing Dave after the show, and I'm picturing George Costanza. Jerk store! Jerk store!
You sure you want to do that? We're going with Jerk store.
Dave comes with a big plate of shrimp to the next preview.
The ocean called. They're running out of shrimp. All right. Let's do the last one here. Over under Ben Roethlisberger interceptions in 2021. The line will be set at 13.5. 13.5. Over under Big Ben INTs in the regular season. We'll start with you, Bad.
I'm thinking under. I think he's got control of the ball.
You look at his career statistics, he is almost always low double digit. We're talking 10, 11, 12. I mean, he's always in that area. And last year he finished with 11? Or was he single digits last year?
No, he was 11.
Okay. So, okay, that's fine. You said under. Dave, what do you think?
So I can't go push here.
How do you go push and a half?
Since you did a half. I know that's why you did a half.
I know.
That's what's so funny. So I am going to go, you said 13 and a half.
Correct.
I am going to go over just because I think there's going to be times when one BTR is going to be pushing it down the field. I mean, the last time the Steelers won the Super Bowl, he had 15 interceptions, but really, other than like one time he's been in the 20, that he's really career-wise under that. So 13 and a half is a great number. So as first as I started to say over, I'm going to say just under now that I think about it.
I'm going to go under as well. I think he's going to be around 11 again, 12 there, in and around there. And that's if he plays full 17 games, by the way. But, and by the way, Dave, you said that's a great number. This isn't my first rodeo. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've been doing over.
And it was 10 that he had last year. Just
Cowboy
10.
Jeff.
Okay. Yeah. I'm the house.
Big guy.
All right. We have trivia tonight.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it a little early. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dave.
Okay. Here's my trivia. Oh, it's been a long time since we've had a Pittsburgh Steelers preseason game. And I know there's still some people poo-pooing it and like, oh, who really cares about this? You know what? I sure do. Anyone who really follows this team and wants to see their depth, you're going to care about this game because you're still going to see players. If you're one of those fans that you only want to see, if you can only name 4 of the starters at any given time, then this is not the game for you, probably. So I'm excited. I'll watch every snap. I'll love it. But the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers had a preseason game was obviously in 2019. Who was the last player to score a touchdown in the preseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
That was against Carolina.
And we're back.
Carolina.
Actually, I think I know this.
Carolina, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Obviously, they always finish.
And I think Bryan, I wonder if Bryan knows this.
Go ahead, Bryan. Take a stab.
Would it be Johnny Holton?
That would be a 31-yard touchdown to one Johnny Holton from
Duck Hodges.
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. Okay.
And what is interesting is the Steelers had, and what was the touchdown before that? Do you remember?
Jaron Elliott.
Jaron Elliott, 88-yard fumble return. What's crazy is the Steelers scored 2 touchdowns in that game, and both of them were basically one-play drives because technically the other one ended the Panthers' drive because he returned it. And what happened is they scored that 31-yard touchdown with 6 seconds left in the half, and they got the ball at the 31-yard line because there was an interception from or by
Jaron Elliott.
No, there was an interception that set up that touchdown. Jeff, do you remember who it was? I'll give you a hint. They're still in the Steelers.
Cam Sutton.
It was Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton picked it off, and one play, touchdown, Johnny Holton. Steelers took the lead for that. They missed the kick. That was Matthew Wright. And but then all they had was like one field goal in the second half. So but
Dave,
that was the last preseason touchdown by the Steelers.
Now, hold on, not to interrupt you, but you said Johnny Holton which reminded me of back in the NFL primetime days when he would always say to Chris Boomer would always say to TJ and he'd always go Louisville because that's where TJ went to school. Where did Johnny Holton go to college?
I do not know that.
You had to look it up real quick, didn't you, Jeff?
I did, but it doesn't matter.
Let's go.
I'll give you a hint. It's in Ohio.
Oh,
Toledo?
Nope.
Let's go. Akron.
Cincinnati. He was a
Cincinnati.
Bearcat. Cincinnati Bearcat. Okay.
There
Anyways.
you go.
Jeff's trivia done.
Nice.
Are you done, Dave? Was that it? Was that all?
Yeah, I thought
trivia?
that was fun. Just
All
to
right, no,
reminisce
that's good.
back to the
That's
last time there was a preseason game.
For sure.
All right.
Brian,
I have one as well. So the Steelers have played the Cowboys in 3 Super Bowls, as we do know. And receivers really made a splash in those games, in those 3 games. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the top three. I'd like to know the top three pass catchers in number of receptions in those Super Bowls.
Doesn't matter which team, or are you talking about just Steelers?
No, it'll be the Steelers.
So I'm gonna go with Swan.
Is he your number one?
Oh,
I think
so
Stalwart's won.
I have to have them in order.
Yes.
Oh, we were just naming them.
Just go ahead. You can go ahead and just.
I think
name
Swan is one of them.
them. Okay.
Is he? Is he? Yes. No. Maybe
Swan is
so.
one.
I thought
he is a receiver or number one.
He is a receiver,
Got it.
and he is actually number one at 11.
Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, was this number of receptions or number of yards?
Number of receptions.
Receptions. Oh, okay.
So Swan is number one with 11. Stallworth.
That's why I said Stallworth.
Yeah, he said Stallworth. Is that 2?
He's not in the top 3.
Really?
He had that big first half.
Did he have a bunch of yards though?
He had a bunch of yards. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking yards and not receptions.
He is not in the top 3.
Okay, so wait a second.
Who was it in
Hold on.
96?
Yeah, as I say, Super Bowl 30. We have to remember Super Bowl 30.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be Yancey Thigpen.
No, it's not Yancey.
Louis Lips just got into the.
Louis Lips was not on that team.
Oh, he wasn't on that team.
No.
Gosh darn it. I'm drawing a blank here. Dave, come on. You're the Oracle. What the
I'm
heck?
working on it. I'm thinking. The problem is I'm not going to remember the right people that's on that team, if you know what I mean. But because there's got to be someone from that 95 game, because there was just,
It's not Larry Brown, by the way, Portnoy-Quenba.
no. Who would have
Neil
had
O'Donnell
the
did have
most-
some good connection with him.
Who else could that have been?
I don't know.
Who was the other receiver?
Someone's in the live chat saying Ernie Mills.
Ernie Mills is number
Wasn't it-
3, and he had 8 in that game.
I'm going to seem like a fool if he wasn't even on the team. But was
Go
that
ahead.
a year where it was Andre Hastings?
Andre Hastings had 10 in that game,
Nice.
and Ernie Mills had 8. And if Ernie Mills
Wow.
doesn't get hurt on that last catch, they might win that game.
Can we not talk about that game?
So I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Why don't we just bring up the Super Bowl 45 game while we're at it?
Oh, okay, we can.
David
If you want.
Jonathan's missed
well,
block.
here's what's crazy. That 1995 season, I can't even remember the number. Was it 30?
Yes, Super Bowl 30.
That
In Arizona. It was in Arizona.
It was just recorded onto my DVR recently because I have a thing set up to record anything that's Steelers. And I'm like, do I want to watch it? I'm like, nah, I need room on the DVR to make sure I got the Hall of Fame game. So I had to delete it. I'm like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I still haven't watched Super Bowl 45 back once. I watched it
haven't either.
live, have not watched it back since. People are like, oh, it's not that bad. No, it is. Everything from the missed block that resulted in the fumble with Clay Matthews and Rashard Mendenhall to the ball sailing through Mike Wallace's hands on the final play from scrimmage for the Steelers. Like, it was just bad.
The pick 6. Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
no,
there's
I'm done.
so many. You could look at so many one plays in that game and say, if that play would have gone the other way, 7
What is that?
Lombardis.
Is that touchdown that they,
know.
it was Rodgers to Greg Jennings, I think. And it was, I mean, talk about threading the needle. I mean, it looked like 3 defenders almost got their fingers. But, Steelers fans can't complain about that. Just look at the Arizona game, Super Bowl 43.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then someone's bringing up the Fitz Toussaint fumble against the Broncos. Why are we doing this to ourselves?
I wasn't trying to. I was just telling you how much I love Ernie Mills, basically, and how
I get
important
it.
he was in that game.
You guys ever watch the show Hee Haw growing up?
Yeah.
Gloom, despair, and agony on me.
No.
Sorry.
That's okay. What did you all think, real quick? We have 6 minutes left. What did you all think about the class of 2021 for the Hall of Honor? And who do you think can get in next year? Brian, we'll start with you.
Well, Tunch was, you have to. It's perfect. He has been an ambassador for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long, long time. Louis Lips and Tony DeFeo wrote an article about this today, that the Steelers Hall of Honor was made for players like Louis Lips. Definitely is. This guy is not going to the Hall of Fame, but I think he's absolutely one of my all-time favorites, because I grew up in the 80s and I loved it. John Kolb, who has the same exact birthday year too as my father, has always been a favorite of mine. And I just found out that last year when I was doing an article on John Kolb. But Kolb was a guy that you don't talk about a lot on those 70s teams, but he's your left tackle, man. And he was tough. He was the Oklahoma State kid, was absolutely great. And he kept Bradshaw upright. And then who am I missing here? I'm missing one.
Carnell
Lake. And we're talking about that 1995 season where he was selfless to move to cornerback, and he still made the Pro Bowl as a corner on that year when Rod Woodson went down. So, it is a really great class. Now, on the Tales from 2 a.m. the other day, we went ahead and we did our own. We put our own in there, and one of the guys that I put in there was Darren Perry. I could see a guy like Darren Perry making the Hall of Honor, and I had a few other guys, but we also did the BTSC Hall of Honor, and the two from BTSC that were voted in. I had a vote, and Kevin Tate had a vote, and my vote was for one Jefferson Hartman. And
the BTSC Hall of Honor,
Kevin Tate's voted for Dave Schofield.
Wow.
So there you go.
So now, if you're doing the Hall of Honor, like, you got to go back to the beginning of Behind the Steel Curtain, like before Neil Coulon. Like, that's a different era.
Yeah.
There used to be.
Don't you have to take someone from each era or something?
You have to be retired for 3 years.
Well, Tony DeFeo is officially in the Hall of Fame, but they no longer do that. But they were doing that when I first came in the first couple of years, and I know DeFeo was voted in. So I guess he is officially a BTSC Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I will never get in.
Neither will I. People hated it when I took over the website. They hated it when I took over the website.
Well, you had a vote from me, so I love it.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Well,
and we're back, ladies and gentlemen.
We're back with some final thoughts here.
I don't get a say?
Yeah.
I didn't get a vote for someone for the Hall of Honor?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And do your final thoughts afterwards.
Okay. Well, now Bryan can go on to final thoughts. I'm still thinking Hall of Honor. What do you think about a player? What do you think like a Willie Parker? Someone who was a key contributor to a Super Bowl team.
No, I'm
do you
not
think
saying
that. Do you think that's kind of like what this is for, or would you rather see someone who maybe had a bigger career but never was able to be a part of a championship team?
To me, I don't understand how you could put Willie Parker in before someone like Joey Porter, James Harrison, Heath Miller. They haven't.
I agree with all those guys.
So I think that Willie Parker gets in eventually, but not next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be stunned.
I'm just wondering what kind of player you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Because
I think there's two types of players. There's a player like Hines Ward who you think maybe him getting in the Hall of Honor could somehow catapult him to maybe getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then there's the player like a Louis Lips that's not going to get into the Hall of Fame, but he should be recognized for his contributions to the Steelers.
Okay.
So I think Willie Parker would be the latter.
Yep.
Definitely should be recognized for what he did for the Steelers, but yeah. I don't know.
How about a Mike Merriweather?
Yeah. I don't care the way he went out.
Levon Kirkland. Like, I mean, where are we going? How far are we going with this?
Well, I'm just saying from those different eras because,
Jeff Reed.
Yeah.
You got to look at guys that were team MVPs and even a Jeff Reed. Yeah. I mean, you got to look at guys that were team MVPs, guys that meant a lot to the team at the time, that were Pro Bowlers, All Pros, but aren't going into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith is definitely deserving.
I think he should be. If you want to talk next year, I would be all for that one.
He and Big Snack. Get them both in there.
Yeah.
And
I said about Big Snack this year.
Yeah. Kimo von Oelhoffen just for Mr. Palmer. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's go with Bryan's final thoughts. Go ahead, Bryan.
All right, so tomorrow is August 4th. It's one day before the Hall of Fame game. And I like to remember the Hall of Fame game from August 5th of 2007. It was Mike Tomlin's first ever coached football game with the Pittsburgh Steelers as a head coach. And I remember trying to watch it, and it was hard to watch it because I was at the hospital because I was celebrating the greatest day of my life at that point, the birth of my first child, which is my son, Connor Michael Anthony Davis, who was born that day, the day before, on August 4th at 10:38. So he was almost an August 5th on that first Tomlin game. And I remember as soon as he was born, I draped him in a terrible towel. And I made my wife had the outfit for his first picture already picked out, this little blue thing with a ducky on it. And I remember saying, that's fine, but he also gets an official hospital picture with the terrible towel. And that's what we did. And so the guy came in to draw blood from him during that game, and he was wearing Ravens shoes. And he cried and screamed at him before he even got near him. And I'm like, that's what you do with a Ravens fan, son. And he's done that ever since. I never thought I was going to have children because of a medical condition that I had years before. And I was blessed to have Connor, and now I have Jillian as well, and my stepson too, Stefan. So I'm very blessed to be a father, but Connor's the one who started it for me. And 14 years old. I cannot believe it. I love this boy to the moon and back. And like he said when he was young, I love you for lots and lots of evers. So Connor, I love you for lots and lots of evers, my man.
Very nice. Very nice. Dave, final thoughts.
We get new data. We don't have to think about
What
I know I'm such a nerd, but I'm just saying we don't have to say, oh, well, this is what so-and-so did last year or things like that. Now, some of these players that are going to play, we're not going to get new data, but at least we're going to get something new from the Pittsburgh Steelers to talk about. We're not going to have to talk about the snap and things like that. We're going to have other things to break down that are actually going to impact this season. Really excited for Thursday.
Yeah, it's amazing how people it's the next season rolls around. You just kind of forget about the previous one. You just roll on to the next one. So we're all excited here behind the Steel Curtain. Make sure behindthesteelcurtain.com is your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Wherever you get your podcasts, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. Subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do so that you don't miss a thing. All right, Dave, send us out.
Hey.
We'll see you all on Thursday night for a post-game show. That's right. We'll see you Thursday.